Hello, and this is an update on the war in Ukraine and other related news. So I'm going to change my format a little bit. I'm going to have a kind of more news on especially the military situation in Ukraine, and then following that I'm going to make like a video where I'm just going to tell my commentary, based on all the information I see, and I've been following this really carefully, so I hope you listen to that too. So, going over to eastern Ukraine, where all the action is, we have a large cauldron that has been formed. This cauldron has been under attack for several months by the Russians, specifically artillery and missile attacks, targeting infrastructure, command and control, ammunition, and other supplies. They've also destroyed most of their aviation, and also a lot of tanks have been targeted. So the Ukrainians at this point have very little heavy weaponry. Their aerial defenses have been destroyed, and most of their artillery has been decimated. So this leaves the Ukrainian troops in the trenches and hiding in the houses. It's not a good situation. So, looking at the cauldron in more detail, we have the Severodonetsk area, where a reported 5,500 troops have already surrendered, and this is in addition to several thousands more previously. This area contains approximately 10 to 15,000 Ukrainian troops, poorly armed and suffering grave shortages of food and ammunition. They have been pushed into the suburban area of the city. The Russians occupy the majority of the city, and this area has been encircled from all directions, leaving the Ukrainian troops to deal with the thought of having to surrender or death. The Russians have made overtures to the Ukrainians on how they can surrender. They have dropped leaflets with instructions. We'll have to see how that develops. The Ukrainians have tried to surrender. There have been reports that units have been executed for making those attempts. One particular unit of 20, there's testimony that 16 were executed by their comrades. Only 4 remained to be able to escape to the Russian side to surrender. The entire Ukrainian front is under heavy artillery and rocket attack daily and nightly. This has had a crushing effect on Ukrainian morale. They are also suffering from huge problems with the supply shortages. So without food, this has intensified the morale problem. There have been several videos of units basically refusing to fight. They call them appeal to Zelensky, videos, and there are numerous now on social media, and they explained in their most common explanation of why they're refusing to fight is that their commanders have fled, they don't have any supplies, they don't have any reinforcements, they don't have any heavy weaponry, and they are just cannon fodder. Okay, so you hear those themes over and over again. So you kind of get an idea of what's going on with the Ukrainian situation based on these videos. So the entire cauldron is in the state of collapse. On the north section of the cauldron, you have the Krasny-Liman area, which is under Russian control. The Ukrainian troops have surrendered or have fled on foot. Most had just left their weapons and have run away. The Ukrainian commander disputes that. He says that they are relocating to, quote, stronger fortified positions. So we'll see. It sounds like a retreat to me. On the southern section of the cauldron, in the Pasnai area, inflicting heavy casualties on the Ukrainian forces, and they are making advancements. problem for the Ukrainians is at this point, with all the destruction of the infrastructure and supplies, and their mobility is severely diminished. So most of these troops in these particular positions, you could consider them more or less static defenses, and they are being surrounded one by one. There, in probably a couple weeks, there's probably going to be a big resolution of this battle going on over in this part of Donbass. This will probably be a staggering defeat for the Ukrainian military. Notice that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, has started to change their narrative from Ukraine winning to now planting the inevitable we are having a lot of losses and, quote, expect them to be a lot worse. So the narrative is changing. There's cold water being splashed in a lot of Ukraine propagandist faces. This is inevitable when reality meets propaganda. It's like, it kind of reminds me, if you've ever followed more closely Stalingrad with the Germans. You know, it was Christmas time, and everyone was told that the German army, you know, is winning and driving back, you know, the Russians, and, you know, all the heroes in Stalingrad. They would come home soon and with a great victory. And then, you know, just a little while later, you know, propaganda, all of a sudden, you know, they hear that there's an imminent surrender of the entire army group. So this is kind of what's going on, you know, with Ukraine. And this is where you have, you know, like the Washington Post starting to change their narrative. You know, they were like winning to now. They actually have a pretty powerful article about how dire the Ukrainian situation is. They're losing.